Nashville Predators fans could take some encouragement from what we are learning from the Carolina Hurricanes this postseason. We're going to explain on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody, for the second time this week. If you're an everydayer, welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off our Friday Junior episode, shouting out those Locked On Predators insiders and everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. I'm Kimmel. I am a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio. And friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I am Emma Lingan, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
Well, we have been watching the NHL postseason, Emma, and it's been sans Nashville. But making sort of this mental list of things Nashville can learn from these playoffs moving forward. And today we are diving into an interesting theory, an interesting hypothesis that could be very enlightening for Predators fans and the team as they move forward. And we thank the Carolina Hurricanes for giving us this topic to talk about. We're going to dive into that, plus get you ready for some Milwaukee hockey that kicks off tonight. Before we dive into all of that, want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, Emma, we got a lot to get to, but I feel like we should put a warning label on this episode because both you and I have come today in a mood. We have shown up in a mood, friends.
I mean, in fairness, when are we not in a mood? But I think today, especially, there's just, I don't know, something in the air today. Just not feeling it.
Yeah, but we are thrilled to be here and thrilled to be talking of Nashville Predators hockey. Just maybe we don't need snark. I'm just throwing it out there, seeing what hits. Don't need snark. Love conversations, though, with our listeners, especially with our insider community. We have a lot of fun chatting with people. But you know what? Bring good intentions and bring great conversation. We love that. Snark? Put that back in your pocket. Anyway. So much to talk about. And Emma teased this on the last episode. And here's what's real. I cut the episode short because I was like, what's she talking about? And Emma has a theory, you all. And I think there is something to this. And I think Nashville Predators fans are going to hear this and go, okay. And it has to do with the Carolina Hurricanes. I also have developed a postseason observation, and we're going to save this for another show. Compliments of the Winnipeg Jets. We'll talk about that on another show, but we're making mental notes through this postseason where the Predators are in Turks and Caicos or at Men's Worlds. And we're going to kick this one off. And this one really for you, Emma, has kind of come to the forefront of your mind via watching these Carolina Hurricanes.
It has, yes. And I feel like now you have hyped up my theory so much that it's not going to be that impressive, but it's something that I have observed. Okay. It is something I have observed. Again, not based on science or anything sophisticated. It is just based on my overall observations and the benefit of hindsight now looking back at this Predators season and now watching the Hurricanes. So my theory. A lot of people were looking at the Carolina Hurricanes after the past year in a very negative light because, well, they lost Jake Gensel. They lost Martin Necas. They traded him for Mikko Rantanen, who ended up not wanting to stay there. So then they lost Rantanen. And it's like, oh man, like this is really a bad look for the Hurricanes. They don't have enough star power, enough, juice in the tank to really go on a long playoff run here because they don't have that superstar power. And this is in addition to the fact that they lost like two of their top defensemen in Brady Shea and Brett Pesce the year before. So everyone, anyone kind of looking at the Hurricanes on paper, we know what that means, Nashville. Anyone looking at the Hurricanes would say this Hurricanes team is not as good as last year's Hurricanes team. So if they couldn't get it done last year, then there is no way that they're going to go on a lengthy playoff run this year. And yet, now they beat the New Jersey Devils in round 1. I don't think that was a surprise to anyone because the Devils did not have Jack Hughes. And the Devils sans Jack Hughes are very different than the Devils with Jack Hughes. So that's not super surprising. And then they come, it's like, all right, they get past New Jersey. Now they're facing Washington. And people are like, okay, well, that was cute. Carolina got out of round 1, but there's no way they're getting out of round 2. And you know what? They still might not. The series isn't over yet. But it's just, I look at the way that they've been playing, and a lot of people have been saying, the series again between Carolina and Washington has been kind of boring, which I understand, because boring in the sense that it's a lot of defensive hockey, and these aren't going to be like big high scoring games with a lot of excitement. It is just, I'm watching Carolina, and they are just stifling Washington. I mean, and this is a Washington team that obviously they've got Ovechkin, they've got Strome, they've got all of these, they have this high powered offense that just seems to have disappeared. And you're looking at it and it's like, well, this doesn't make sense, because on paper, Washington is a better team than Carolina. I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
Right.
But now, on one hand, yes, Carolina's goaltender is playing out of his mind in these playoffs, which certainly helps. But I think when you just look overall at the way Carolina is taking away time and space from Washington, not allowing them to get sustained pressure, sustained time in the offensive zone. And when they do get into the offensive zone, it's like one and done. And then they're immediately heading back the other way. Like, Carolina is fast and they're just shutting Washington down. And I kind of had this aha moment where I thought about, oh, okay, so part of it could be a little bit of a mental, like, we'll show you guys, we don't need Jake Gensel or Mikko Rantanen. Like, I think that's probably part of it. But I would say the bigger part of it is that they see, and whether it's conscious or not, they see, oh, we don't have a superstar that we can lean on. We don't have a guy like that. We have, I mean, that's not to say they don't have really good players. They have Sebastian Aho. They have Andrei Svechnikov. They have Seth Jarvis. They have Jacob Slavin on the back end. They have super talented guys, but they don't have a guy. And so because they have that knowledge, I think it's a little bit of like, okay, since we don't have that guy, we're really just going to lean all the way in and just buy into Rod Brindamore's system. And we're not going to take the bait when Tom Wilson tries his shenanigans. That's another thing I've noticed, is that Carolina's not taking the bait at all. And that is frustrating the ever living flagnog out of Washington right now. And I think that my overall takeaway from this is like, aha, there could be something to be learned from this for Nashville, because what have we been saying all year? It's like, well, this Nashville team was better this year on paper, but they were so much worse. And then last year, it took them a while, but they eventually seemed to get the system and it seemed to be working for them. Why doesn't it work this year? And I think there is something to be said for that idea of, like, the Nashville Predators of last year didn't have Steven Stamkos. They didn't have Jonathan Marchessault. They didn't have Brady Shea. And it was more of a just kind of collective buy-in from the group that it's like, okay, we don't have a guy. Now we have a Philip Forsberg and we have a Ryan O'Reilly, and like we have some really good pieces, but we can't fully, they're not the kinds of players who, you can run an entire offense through them. And so
Yeah.
we as a collective, as a group, have to really buy into this system, lean into what our coaches are telling us, and, try to win games that way. And it worked for them. And so that was just kind of my overall thought, that it's like, aha, maybe there is something to this whole superstar theory. Now, am I saying that Carolina or that Nashville would be able to like just cruise all the way to a Stanley Cup playing like this? No. But I am saying that there is something to be said for, why certain systems don't work with certain teams, or why it worked one year but not the next year. And I really, that is just something that became evident to me while I watch Carolina, because they are just playing an absolutely stifling brand of defensive hockey.
Yeah.
So the system is not the same. It's not the same as Brunette's system, but it's a similar concept in that, like, okay, it is very clear what they are trying to do here, and it's working because they are all buying into the system. And so that was just kind of my takeaway.
I think every Nashville Predator fan is amening along with this, because we have talked about this, that there appeared to be, and I feel like some of the comments that we have gotten from Andrew Brunette, some of the comments and reflections we've gotten from Barry Trotz, confirm that there was this subconscious deferring to the new superstars who were going to come in and lead the charge for Nashville. And it paralyzed, in the words of Barry Trotz, it paralyzed the leadership group. And I think there is something to be said for that, because you don't see it with Carolina. You see everybody going, okay, we all have to do this thing to get anywhere, because nobody is going to put us on their back and carry us. And I love that we're seeing that. And here's the thing. I've heard people say, Washington, Carolina, it's so boring. It's so boring. It's so boring. You know what's not boring? Winning a Stanley Cup. You know what's not boring? Apparently drinking out of the Stanley Cup. You'd never catch me doing it, but apparently that's what we love to do, and it's super fun. Like, it doesn't have to.
It's like
No,
there's
go ahead.
more than one way to skin a cat, It's not everyone. You can't be an offense like, Florida won their game against Toronto 6-1.
Oof.
I don't think that, you can't expect, if you're the Hurricanes, you can't see like, oh, Florida did that, so we have to do exactly that. No, because you have a different team, a different roster makeup, a different opponent, and
Yep.
you are now frustrating the ever living daylights out of that opponent because you're taking away time and space. And then when they try to, doing what they do, which is, I think, the right way to go about it, it's like, all right, well, we're not getting anywhere offensively. Let's try to inject some life into this in some other way. Let's try to mix it up. Let's throw the body around. And Carolina also understands. They look around and they're like, oh, we don't really have a someone who could really go toe to toe with Tom Wilson.
So let's not.
So let's not play his game. And that's the thing, is that Carolina is forcing Washington to play their game, and
Yes.
Washington's getting stuck. And I think that is just a testament to their buying into the system. And I think whether they, I'm not saying they're consciously in the locker room like, all right, guys, clearly, like, look at us. We're not that good. But I think they are, like, there
They're
is this sort
not.
of understanding that it's like, okay, in order for us to be that good, we have to play this system and we all have to buy in.
Yes. No, where did this idea of there is one way to skin a cat come from? Well, I'm here to point fingers, friends. Coming up, we're going to tell you where this narrative may have originated and how it is being corrected. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs, they are in full swing, and every night is delivering highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it is a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. If you're new to FanDuel, it is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. So make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Emma, I'm actually a huge proponent of this theory. And I think Nashville Predators fans, like I said, can see what the reverse of that looks like when, and I think we've been through that. The encouraging thing to Nashville Predators fans is I think they have named the elephant in the locker room in Nashville and have talked about it. And I think that part of what paralyzed the leadership group, I think those conversations alone are going to help evaporate some of that paralysis. I think it's going to heal some of that paralysis. But you do look at Carolina's roster. And again, Carolina has a ton of talent on the roster. Don't hear what we are not saying. They have a ton of talent on their roster, but they don't have an Ovechkin. They don't have a McDavid where you're like, who is going to get them through this playoffs? Insert player's name. And there is something about that I think is freeing and that is unifying in that locker room. And again, I come back to, I don't care how you win. I don't care if people feel like it wasn't entertaining. You win. Like, entertaining or not, you need the winning score at the end of that final buzzer. And Carolina so far has been working their system all together to get there. We did not see that last season. And so a lot of blame went to a lot of different places. I think it's interesting too. You talk about there's more than one way to skin a cat. And I think for a long time, people have believed that there is a formula to how you put together a postseason team that is going to be successful. And I am here to lay the blame. I'm not actually laying blame, giving credit. Let me rephrase. So let's talk about Dom at The Athletic, who is fantastic. But on September 21st, 2020, he changed the trajectory of the conversations that we have had to have for 5 years simply by writing an article in The Athletic. And he talked about what you have to have by studying and analyzing previous Stanley Cup winners. Here is what they had in common that seemed like a formula for how you build a Stanley Cup winning team. And the first thing on that list, Emma, just guess what the first most important piece is.
Was it perhaps having an elite 1C?
Dom, on September 22nd, 2020, Nashville Predators fans began their desperate search for the missing link. Yeah, we still don't have it. We still don't have it. But it really, that article and kind of the way that you measure a roster, and it's not just that, but it starts with that elite first line setter that's among the very best players in the world. Okay, not all 32 teams are going to have the elite first line setter that's among the best players in the world. And he goes on to say, like, an elite first line winger, two other top line wingers, top line center to play behind the elite center, and then two more top six forward. There's a list in this article of this is what these previous teams had. But this is how he ends the list. It's a tall order. Do you think so? It's a tall order, especially making sure all the pieces fit together beyond numbers on a page. Chemistry matters. And I think that article sent people into algebra for hockey. Like, we need A plus B plus C plus D is going to equal Stanley Cup. And it starts with A. We need an elite 1C. And we've been talking about this. Nashville has been on the hunt for the Elite 1C. It is like trying to find the leprechaun from Lucky Charms, friends. And I credit Dom for doing this research and helping people measure and quantify what has been successful. But I do want to say this. Shout out to Dom at The Athletic, because in April he put out a new article and he said, you know what? I'm going to focus, instead of positionally, I'm going to focus on roles. And it's not like you must go out and get an elite 1C, one of the best players in the world. And he said he ranked players based on where they fall against the average in the NHL for that position, and then named kind of the roles that you have to play. And this is something we're going to dive into later on. We're going to kind of compare Nashville's roster to this new amended kind of a change of perspective article that Dom wrote about successful teams. But I do think that sent everybody on the hunt for the formula. And I think it leaves Nashville Predators fans feeling awful, not like the season didn't already feel awful, but we didn't have the first thing on that list. But I think it comes down to a couple of things. In your theory in Carolina, I think attests to this. You need people to fill roles, and you need them to perform well or above expectation at the right time. You don't have to have an elite 1C for 82 games of the regular season. You need somebody to perform at an elite level, or he calls it a luxury level, in the postseason. And Carolina is getting elevated play from players that you aren't probably going to look at in the NHL and go, that is an elite 1C, one of the best players in all of the world. It can be done a different way. And again, we'll see what happens with Carolina and Washington. The series is not over, but I think watching Carolina makes a point that there is more than one way to build a team that can be very competitive in the postseason. And I don't know if that's going to make Preds fans feel better. I don't know if it's going to make them feel worse, but I think it's a different way to look at roster building, because I think Dom broke us in 2020, Emma. I think he broke us.
Yes, I agree that there's absolutely more than one way. There is not one, definitive formula for building a team that can compete in the playoffs, especially for, like you said, those kinds of elite players you're talking about, one of the best in the world. Well, they're one of the best in the world, and for a reason, because there aren't that many of them.
There aren't 32 of them.
Yes, and so I think that I do agree with that. However, I will also add that what we are not saying here is that Nashville doesn't need to improve their center depth,
100%.
because they absolutely do.
They absolutely do.
They do. And so the two things can be true. They need to improve their center depth for sure. But it's not like, well, y'all, if we don't get Michael Misa in the draft, then we are toast, and that is it. Like, I think that is something that, you can improve your center depth without getting Connor McDavid. Like, it's possible to do, people. And so I think it's important just not to look at that as like absolutes. Like, we have to improve our center depth with this guy in this way. It's like, no, there are other ways to do it. You still have a position of need that you need to address, and Barry Trotz and Jeff Kelty and everyone have acknowledged that, but there's more than one way to do it. So that is just kind of, I want to make sure that I totally agree with you that, people are laser focusing on this whole top line center thing, sometimes to a fault, but it is, we are not saying that they don't need a 1C, because they do.
That doesn't mean just stay where you're at and hope for the best. We're certainly not saying that. Like, they do 100%. They need to address that. I think it's interesting, though, the kind of the new way of looking at it. You think back to 2017, and I don't think there is anybody that's going to go, who is one of the most elite top centers in all of the world? Ryan Johansson. But in the postseason, before he was injured, do you know who was playing at an exceptionally high level at that position? Also Ryan Johansson. So I think it is about getting the very best talent at the positions. I think it is about elevating that level of play. I think it is the buy-in that you're talking about that we see from Carolina. They are so bought in, not only in their locker room, but on the ice, that they refuse to play a different game than what they intend to play. And we've seen that in their games. Nashville had so many games dictated to them. Part of that came because they were scored on first and you have to catch up. And that is part of what kind of takes you off of your game, is if you are digging out of a hole in 60 minutes. But being able to play your game makes a big difference too. I also go back to how Dom finished his list in 2020, and he said chemistry matters. And I think that is one area where I really hope that we can see significant improvement for the Nashville Predators. And I'm not saying, well, once they all get along and sing Kumbaya, we are right back in the second round of the playoffs, folks. But chemistry matters.
And again, it does. But again, what we are not saying is that they don't have chemistry because they don't like each other. And it's a JT Miller, Elias Pettersson situation. Oh, there's drama in the locker room. Who's beefing with who? Yeah, get up, put away your drama cauldrons. It is not, a lack of chemistry does not only stem from some sort of off ice beef between certain players. That's not what it is. It is truly, I think, like what we talked about earlier, it is the just natural inclination for these guys to just defer to each other. And I think at the end of the day, that is definitely an area of improvement for Andrew Brunette, because he was trying to be, he is definitely known as being a player's coach. The locker room is their space. I don't want to be a dictator, blah, 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 which I think there is, value to that. But at the end of the day, if they're all so afraid to step on each other's toes, you got to be the coach and you got to come in and sort of demand that chemistry, and not in a way that it's like, hey guys, get along. It's not like that, but it's like, okay, if no one is gonna take the the leadership role, then like someone has to kind of force
it upon them. Thrust it upon them.
And so I think that there's plenty of blame and plenty of room for improvement to go around here. It's not all on Brunette. It's not all on the players. I think that they all share in it. But I think now that they know it, again, now that we've identified that elephant in the room, that it's like, okay, now let's move forward from it. And it's about how we fix it now.
Absolutely. Talking about hockey and coaching and moving forward, the Milwaukee Admirals are hoping to move forward. They kick off their Central Division Finals series tonight against the Texas Stars. Coming up, we are going to preview that matchup and tell you who we are keeping our eye on in that game. All right, Emma, Milwaukee kicking off the Central Division Finals tonight, 7 p.m. Really should have looked that up and confirmed it before we hopped on here. I believe it is 7 p.m. Again, you can find these games on Flow Hockey, FLO hockey.com. But they are playing the Texas Stars. Winner of this series is going to go to the Western Conference Finals. The Admirals have been in the Western Conference Finals the previous 2 seasons. They have lost to Coachella Valley, who, by the way, is out of the postseason. I keep score. I hold grudges. And whoever wins their conference finals, of course, is going to be in the Calder Cup finals. So they are really making a push. We know Milwaukee is coming off of that reverse sweep of the Rockford Ice Hogs to get to the Central Division Finals. The Texas Stars actually swept the regular way their series versus the Grand Rapids Griffins. It did take double overtime in game 3 to get the win, but they did that. So they are coming in here having defeated Grand Rapids. it's going to be really interesting to see what happens between these two teams. Now, they met in the postseason last year. Last year, it was the Stars that Milwaukee reversed swept last year. And they faced each other 8 times this season. They went 4-4. They split their games this season in the regular season. Interestingly, Emma, I think something to keep an eye on. Each team won 3 road games and only 1 home game. So it's going to be really, really interesting. This series, it's going to start off, games 1 and 2 are going to start off in Texas, and then they will come back to Milwaukee for games 3, 4, and 5, 4 and 5 if needed. Come on, Milwaukee. I love this matchup, but it makes me very uncomfortable, Emma. I'm not going to lie. It makes me very uncomfortable. Texas is a very good team. This is going to be a very tough season, and the player that makes me the most nervous for Texas is Matej Blumel. And this is a guy who last season kept showing up in the games, sticking around. He is really good. 25 years old, he's 67 games in the regular season, 72 points. He has the most goals in the AHL of all of the skaters this season. He is second in total points in the entire AHL this season. He makes me a little nervous. So first thing I'm going to need the Admirals to do is just don't let him. Defense was a little too optional for me in the last round. So let's just not with him. Here's another name that may be slightly familiar, and this could cause some tension at Christmas on the Texas Stars roster. Emma, Cole Lind. Ooh, family reunion's going to be spicy. I hate that for Kaylin.
And wasn't Cole Lind on Coachella Valley last year? Wasn't that the...
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
Yes, he was. I asked Kaylin at Dev Camp, I'm like, so in that series between the Milwaukee Admirals, the franchise that signed you, and, your brother who you grew up with, who were you rooting for? And, of course, Kaylin Lind, just 6 feet, I don't know what, of just delight and enthusiasm. It's like, oh, I'm really not gonna say. he didn't want to say.
Bless him.
Bless him. This is also going to be a good goaltending matchup. Of course, we've talked about Matthew Murray has been very, very good in the regular season. Magnus Hellberg is the goaltender for the Texas Stars. Coincidentally, Emma, drafted by the Nashville Predators in 2011. Played 3 seasons with the Milwaukee Admirals to kick off his career. Now he's back, not wearing the Milwaukee Admirals uniform, and he has been very, very good, especially down the stretch for them. So I think this is going to be a lot of goaltending, a lot of defense. When you're looking at the Admirals, Emma, who is like the player that you just want to take the reins and go?
Well, I think, we talked about Fedor Svechkov in the last round, and we wanted to see something out of him. Yes, obviously he goes and he wins. He gets the OT winner to advance. And so I'm not saying that by doing that, it's like, all right, I've seen enough from him. Let's move on to someone else. I'm not saying that, but I just to, broaden my horizons here and say that there are other guys I'd like to see things from. Number one, offensively, Joakim Kemell, I think could really use a good series here. Number 2, on defense, I would like to see Spencer Stastny a little bit more, because he has obviously committed to him as for 2 seasons when they signed him last offseason. This past year was a bit of a mulligan, I think. It's like you can't really read too much into anything that happened this past year, because it was just not a normal year for him. He missed all of training camp. I was about to call it spring training. Can you tell? I've been writing about baseball all day. But I think that he came up to the NHL pretty quickly this year. Again, injuries kind of necessitated that, but he struggled a little bit. I would like to see him kind of gain some of that confidence back. And I think that some postseason success can do a lot for that.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. And we have gotten a glimpse of David Edstrom And I've really liked what we've seen from him. I'd like to see him get more comfortable as well. But I'm with you, Joakim Kemell, if he can pop off, especially in this series, I would love it for the Admirals. I think it would be key for the Admirals to have his scoring. But I do think even personally, that would be great for him. I think it would be great for him to have a great postseason and come into dev camp, training camp, all of that kind of on that upward trajectory. I think we all want to see that from him. Again, this is Milwaukee versus Texas Stars. It is going to be, I'm telling you all, this is going to be a series. It makes me uncomfortable, but we're here for our Admirals. And I will say this, Carl Taylor prepares his team. He prepares his team. Now, I would like for this team to win on the road. Like, I am of an age, boys, where I'm going to need you to not have to reverse sweep this. I just don't need that stress in my life. Did we mention at the top of the show that Emma and I are in a mood today? So just for the love of God, we're going to need you to get this win tonight. Kick this series off well. Again, you can check out Milwaukee Hockey. First of all, that's a great fun thing to say. Check out Milwaukee Hockey on Flow Hockey, FLO hockey.com. Of course, Emma and I will bring you on tomorrow's show a recap of whatever happens down in Texas against those Stars. And we'll probably also need to talk about some NHL playoff hockey because, hey, Edmonton, after taking, oh my gosh, the loss that they had from Vegas, scoring with like the hair on my chinny chin time left.
0.4 seconds.
I mean, I love it too for Stuart Skinner. I love it for Stuart Skinner. 2 shutouts to close out that series. So like Edmonton's moving on. We'll see who else is moving on. What has wowed you? Tell me just real quick before we wrap up, Emma, what has wowed you just recently in the postseason?
Oh gosh.
I know. Sorry. I just threw that at you.
I think the goaltending has been one thing. Like, Freddie Anderson being one of the most dominant goaltenders in the playoffs, did not have that on my bingo card. Stuart Skinner, back-to-back shutouts after getting chased in round 1, did not have that on my bingo card either. So it goes to show that the playoffs are just a different animal, and there is no one way to build a team that is going to be successful in the playoffs. Because again, look at Connor Hellebuck. Now he has sort of, he doesn't look as dreadfully terrible as he did in the first round against St. Louis, but I would say he still looks pretty human right now, which is not what we're used to from him. So just like the differing goaltending performances we've seen across the board has just been, it's been a phenomenon to watch.
It has. And one of my big observations for the Predators this season comes right there with goaltending. Maybe we'll share that on tomorrow's show. Who knows? It could be really interesting. So make sure you tune in tomorrow. It's going to be Friday. It's always a great show on Friday. We always have something up our sleeve. Emma, before we log off on this Friday, Junior, though, will you let everyone know where they can find you and your work?
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingan, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well. Friends, that is going to do it for this Thursday episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks again so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are going to be back tomorrow recapping, hopefully, a Milwaukee win. We'll see you then.